We're back with another Hoop Scoop Media Conference preview today, taking us to the American Conference, the AAC, somewhere in between the high majors and the mid majors. Um, yeah, pretty solid conference, but we have to touch on at least the unfortunate passing of Amir Abdur-Rahim last week, as we mentioned in the ASUN preview. But being his conference again, it still doesn't really feel real, like almost a week later.
Yeah, it's just kind of crazy. Like, just I don't know, never take life for granted. Live each day with a purpose. And I mean, I've seen a lot of coaches that have had good relationships with Abdur Rahim just kind of speak again on the type of person he was, and obviously a very successful coach during his time at Kennesaw State and USF. So
Yeah, so only 1 year in the conference with South Florida, but made a huge impact there. Won the conference regular season. So yeah, again, sending our prayers and well wishes out to his family, friends, players. But yeah, now to get into the actual conference, obviously, as I mentioned, South Florida was the winner of the conference regular season last year. The um the winner of the conference tournament was UAB, kind of turning your talent in at the right time, and South or Florida Atlantic was the highest team in KenPom. Also got a tournament bid. FAU and UAB were the two selections into the tournament. So yeah, they're just looking back at some of the all conference members from last year and where they are now. From the first team, Yaxel Lendeborg is back at UAB. Jonell Davis transferred to Michigan from Florida Atlantic. Following, or no, he didn't transfer to Michigan. Getting my guys mixed up there. Dusty May went to Michigan, but Jonell Davis is at Arkansas this year. David Jones from Memphis started his pro career. Jason Edwards from North Texas transferred to Vanderbilt, and Chris Youngblood from South Florida transferred to Alabama. Moving to the second team, Lukai Patterson from Charlotte transferred to Minnesota. He's joining your Golden Gophers.
yes,
But
sir.
yeah, Vlad Golden from Florida Atlantic, he did indeed transfer to Michigan following Dusty May. Elijah Martin from Florida Atlantic stayed in state, going to the big boys to Florida. Selton Miguel from South Florida transferred to Maryland, and Zurich Phelps from SMU transferred to Texas A&M. Moving on to the third team, Igor Milicic from Charlotte transferred to Tennessee. RJ Felton is back at East Carolina. Javon Quinley from Memphis exhausted his eligibility. Kevin Cross from Tulane also exhausted his eligibility. And PJ Haggerty from Tulsa State inside the conference transferring to Memphis. So moving on to our predicted all conference teams this year. Actually, we can hit on the coaching changes of the league first. One of the coaching changes, just to get South Florida out of the way, they officially are going with Ben Fletcher as interim coach for this season. Obviously, a terrible situation, not anything. Yeah, it's a rough times for the program, but Fletcher has worked with Amir Abdur-Rahim for when he was at Kennesaw State, pretty well regarded. So all things considered, I think they're in pretty good hands for this year.
Yeah, I think he should be able to keep them competitive within the conference. Obviously losing a lot of talent from last year's squad, but I still think they should be in the top half of the league.
Yes. Florida Atlantic, Dusty May, as I just mentioned, is off to Michigan as a head coach following an amazing tenure with the Owls. And John Jacobs is the guy replacing him, coming as an assistant from Baylor. I really like this. I like the Scott Drew coaching tree, so can't go wrong with that.
Yeah, I think going into the Scott Drew coaching tree, I don't think it's burnt to anybody yet, and I think it's a good hire for FAU. And I also like the international connections he seems to have had in the past, and he was able to bring in a couple talented guys that should impact right away.
Yes, absolutely. UTSA, another team making a change. Steve Henson fired after a pretty bad tenure there, But Austin Claunch is the new man in charge of the Roadrunners. Another hire I like. He won at Nichols in a place that did not have any resources whatsoever. Spent time as an assistant at Alabama last year, and he finally gets his head coaching job a little bit better than he was at Nichols. And yeah, again, another one I really like.
Yeah, and he'll probably be in the same situation that he had at Nichols. Nichols, not very many resources in a league that in the Southland that doesn't have really, in a sense, but UTSA will kind of be at the bottom of the American resource wise. But I still think he should be able to over time build them up.
Yes. And the other coaching change in the league is at Rice, where Rob Lanier takes over. Scott Parrott was fired last year. And yeah, Lanier, he won to an extent in the conference at SMU. Obviously, SMU is no longer in the conference, but I mean he's I think he's a pretty good hire as well.
Yeah, I think already been in the league last couple of years, and I think, um, yeah, you can say what you want about him kind of being pushed out the door at SMU, but I still think he'll come to Rice with a bit of a chip on his shoulder, and yeah, a good enough coach to have in this league.
Yes, and yeah, as I mentioned, SMU no longer in the league, going from 14 to 13 teams over the offseason. But getting into our personal all conference awards, my player of the year is PJ Haggerty, staying in the conference, moving to Memphis, really was able to score the ball last season, can get to the rim. I think he's really gonna make a big impact in a pretty talented team, at least.
Yeah, I really like PJ Haggerty too, but I had to go with Yaxel Lendeborg, the big man for UAB. Um, I think it should be between those two, no matter what kind of happens. But
Yes. My freshman of the year, as you were talking about some FAU international connections early on, that's where my freshman year is coming from. That is Matas Vokititis. I may have mispronounced that, maybe, but yeah, should be FAU starting big man and should really make an impact for the Owls. Had some good, I believe he was really impressive in their exhibition the other day. So hard to argue. I mean, there are definitely some good freshmen, but can't really knock placing him there, in my opinion.
yeah, I went with another one of the international FAU guys. I went with Max Lingenfeld,
Yeah.
um, out of Germany, I believe. Yeah, Germany. Yeah, I saw some hype for him this offseason, and with a basically brand new roster, I'm all in on him being able to be one of the standout guys for them.
Yes, two extremely big international pickups. Both were on my all freshman team. And my defensive player of the year, I went with Musa Cisse for Memphis. He's an elite defender. Memphis kind of has an interesting big rotation, so I guess we'll see how much exactly he plays, but he is dominant at the rim defensively if he gets enough minutes.
Yeah, I went another way. I went with Lendeborg, just impactful on both ends. So I feel like if he's going to be my player of the year, his impact on the defensive side of the ball is probably going to be near the top of the conference as well.
Yes, he is elite defensively. What kind of drew me away there is UAB was kind of bad defensively last year, even though they hypothetically had defensive talent. Like Eric Gaines was a really good defender. They had a lot of athletes, so that kind of knocked Lendeborg out of there because the team defense like. But again, another guy that should be an elite defender. So. Moving to our all conference teams, my first team, I had Haggerty. I had Jaden Reed from South Florida, RJ Felton from East Carolina, Baba Miller transferring in to Florida Atlantic from Florida State, and Landeborg from UAB.
Okay, I went a pretty different route, I guess.
Really?
I had, yeah, Justin Hill, transferring in from Georgia, now at Wichita State, and then PJ Haggerty, Yaxel Lindenborg, two guys you had. I had Atten Wright coming in to North Texas from Drake, and then the final guy was Max Langenfeld, um, the freshman for FAU out of Germany. So I think what two of the same, three differences there.
Yeah, that's and two of those guys weren't even on any of my all conference teams, so that means it's probably going to be a fun league if there's that much uncertainty.
Yeah, and yeah, I had a couple of your guys on the second team, and one of them
Yeah.
out of the
But
picture
moving
entirely.
moving to my second team, I had Tyron Moore, incoming transfer to UAB from Georgia Southern. I had Jamal Mashburn Jr., incoming transfer to Temple from New Mexico. Kiki Tandy, incoming transfer from Jacksonville State to Florida Atlantic. Adden Wright, as you mentioned, transferring in from Drake to North Texas, and another transfer to round out five transfers on my second team. I have Damari Monsanto transferring into UTSA from Wake Forest. So a lot of talent leaving the league, but also you got some guys coming in.
Yeah, I had Jamal Mashburn Jr. on my second team as well as Dane Danger. So again, two newcomers coming in, and then um, Buda Johnson for UAB, and then a couple of guys you had on your first team, and Jaden Reed and RJ Felton.
It's, and moving to my third team, lot of transfers here as well. Colby Rogers transferring within the conference, going from Wichita State to Memphis. I have Rowan Brumbaugh transferred into Tulane from Georgetown. Dwan Odom coming into Tulsa from Georgia State. Corey Washington coming into Wichita State from St. Peter's. And Nick Graves, who is not a transfer, which is a rarity in this all conference list, apparently.
Yeah, I had a four of the five in my third team were transfers. So I had Tyron Moore for UAB, transferring in from Georgia Southern. Kai or Kiki
I believe it's
Tandy,
Kiki.
Kiki Tandy for FAU, transferring from Jacksonville State. Kobe Rogers at Memphis, transfer over from Wichita. Lynn Greer at Temple, transfer from St. Joe's, and then Quincy Ballard, the Wichita State big man, um, the lone returner in my third team.
Yes. So moving to our freshman team, I actually got one transfer here too, which is the transfers make themselves known everywhere apparently. But yeah, I got the two international FAU guys in Maxi Langfield and Matas Fokititis. Got CJ Brown for South Florida, Jared Harris from Memphis, and Amari Jordan from Tulane. Jordan transferring in from Georgia, where he did not play as a freshman, making him a redshirt freshman this year. Still eligible how I do it for my all conference teams.
Yeah, I guess going into the preview, I wasn't sure on the FAU guys what their eligibility was. So if you've done the graphics already, you're gonna have to fix Langenfeld and Vokatitis onto my freshman team. But I had those two along with CJ Brown and Jared Harris. CJ Brown for South Florida, Jared Harris for Memphis. And then my final guy, the only difference was Boogie Felton, younger brother of RJ Felton at East Carolina. And Bobby
Yes.
Pettiford out the door. I mean, I think Boogie Felton could have a window of opportunity there.
Yes. Definitely. So moving to our breakout players. First guy on my breakout list is Greg Glenn the third from Tulane. I believe going into his second year with the Green Wave after transferring in from Michigan. And Tulane is not a team I overly like this year. Not a lot there. At least they lost a ton of talent, but Glenn, I mean, he's a high major athlete, and with so much uncertainty, I think he's a guy who could really break out in his second year there.
First guy up for me was Jaden Reed for South Florida.
Yeah.
Already somewhat broke out, I guess, as a freshman, averaged 7-3, but Chris Youngblood not in the picture anymore, and Selton Miguel as well. I think it should be a big year for Reed. And we
Yeah.
both had him as part of our all conference teams. So
Yeah, he is going to be really, really good. Um, but another guy I went with for Tulsa, another team that's probably not going to end up in the top half of the conference, but have some solid young talent. One of those guys being Tyshawn Archie, was a pretty good scorer in the minutes that he played last year, and I think he could emerge into the team's leading scorer potentially. I think.
Yeah, I had Archie as well, listed in my five breakout guys, and then another one for me was Quincy Ballard at Wichita State. Um, with Kenny Poto out of the picture now, I think he probably has a bigger role for Wichita, and yeah, a perfect chance to get more touches and ultimately see all his numbers go up.
Yeah. Yes, another guy that made my list, coming over from, or not coming over, he's at East Carolina, was there last year, but that's Sir Malonga. Guy that kind of started towards the end of last year, still didn't play a ton of minutes, but should be the starting center all of this year, I think. So definitely going to be a lot of minutes for him to play, more than last year. And yeah, it was a pretty highly regarded freshman considering, the conference. And yeah, I think he's someone who could really improve this year.
Yeah, I had Malonga as well. Brandon Johnson, Ezra Osar out the door, both going up to
Yes.
P5s. And then, yeah, you mentioned Malonga started the end of last year. Didn't see too many minutes, but now should have the starting five spot all to himself and shouldn't really have too much competition either.
Yes. Another guy I had on my list is Christian Coleman from UAB. Really highly regarded junior college prospect. Might have been like top five last year, at least like top 10 or top 15 now. Well regarded coming from that level. And really was playing good towards the end of last year. And UAB is a team that has a lot of guys, but I think if he continues on what he was doing last year, he's going to be pretty good this year.
My final guy, highlighting once again the South Florida backcourt. I went with Kobe Knox, redshirt junior, averaged 8 and 3 last year, and then once again he's going to be next to Jaden Reed, freshman CJ Brown probably in the mix, but just a lot more touches to go around now with Miguel, Pryor, and Youngblood
Yes.
transferring up.
For my Let's guy, I went with Rondell Walker from North Texas. Transferred in last year from, I believe it was TCU. I know he played at Oklahoma State before. I'm pretty sure he transferred in from TCU. Was one of those midseason eligible guys, so maybe didn't get quite into his groove, but should be a really impactful glue guy. And I think his scoring could improve a little bit without Jason Edwards there. And yeah, a lot of roster turnover, but he is back. I definitely could see that second year breakout considering how, I mean, he was one of those guys. Oklahoma State had like a few guys that was like him and Matthew Alexander Moncrief just kind of like got worse every year since their freshman year. But Walker was pretty impactful defensively. I think you could definitely see an improvement from him this year. So yeah, moving to our top 10 transfers. Number one, I obviously had Haggerty as my player of the year.
Yeah, I had Haggerty as well, and then second guy was Atten Wright, another member of my first team.
Yes, I had Attenright at five, but at second, I have Baba Miller. I think he's going to be really good at FAU.
I don't have Baba Miller a part of mine, but that's just kind of more the uncertainty of how that FAU front court all turns out.
Yes.
Um, Second for me was Wright, and then third was Justin Hill, the Georgia transfer in for Wichita.
I did not have Justin Hill on there. A lot of good transfers in the league, but at number three is where I had Tyron Moore from UAB.
I had Tyron Moore at seventh.
All right. Then four, I have Jamal Mashburn Jr.
Yep, I've got Mash at four as well.
Then yeah, Attenright, North Texas at five.
And then I had Dane Dange at five.
Number six, I have Kiki Tandy, Florida Atlantic transfer, all conference team for both of us. So
Yeah, I had Tandy at eight. And then
yes.
six for me was Kobe Rogers.
All right, and I had Rogers at seventh.
And then that's where I had Tyron Moore.
All right, number eight, I have Tyreek Smith. I think he's on Memphis. There's kind of some things going on last week or so where he was like off the team, but never actually off the team, and that was maybe a false report. He just like stepped away for a day or so. I don't know, but if he like winds up, if nothing else happens, I kind of like Tyreek Smith. So or keeping
Yeah,
him on there?
I remember seeing the news that he was like away and then he was back or whatnot. I was watching Alabama Memphis the exhibition the other night, but I can't say I remember him on the floor, but I also wasn't watching too closely or listening for his name. Eighth is where I had Tandy.
Number 9, I have Tyrese Hunter from Memphis. Not a guy I love, but you still should be a pretty solid player in this conference.
Yeah, number nine, I went with Lynn Greer, and member of my third team all conference. I think him and Mashburn should be a pretty exciting backcourt. I don't know how it'll turn out for Temple, but
Yes. Then number 10 is where I had Corey Washington, incoming transfer, was really, really good player for St. Peter's last year, leading them to the tournament. So yeah, it's rounding out my top 10.
yeah, I had Hunter here at first, Washington, another guy I considered, but I ended up going with Baraka Okoji from Memphis, transferred in from George Mason, and I was able to catch both Memphis's exhibition games, UNC and Alabama, and I really liked what he provided for them defensively. I thought he had a bigger impact defensively than Hunter, to be honest. But
Yes, definitely think he's someone, yeah, who can make I really liked him at George Mason, but just so many transfers, and a lot of that's due to so much talent loss. I think that conference might have been like has like the least returning percentage. I want to say saw that if it's not the least, it's like the second least, or just
it's
yeah,
it's definitely up
it's
there.
it's it's yeah, a lot of talent lost. So that yeah, it should make for some interesting basketball this season because we don't know what a lot of these teams will look like, because we haven't seen them. But moving back to the individual team reviews, going from worst to first base out of last year, and actually 5 teams tied for the worst record last year at 5-13. But we will start with UTSA. Um, as we mentioned, they made a coaching change, hiring Austin Clunch away from Alabama, where he was an assistant previously at Nichols, but they basically lost their whole roster, which is good. So
Yeah, just yeah, full reset, basically new coach. Intriguing, but I don't know how Claunch will fare in year one. I went with 11th for the Roadrunners.
I have them at I have them at 10th this year. Um, it's definitely an interesting team for sure, but I think it's a lot better than last year at the very least.
Yeah, at the very least, you've got a lot of experienced players, so a lot of four or
Yes.
5 year guys.
There is some interesting players. Primo Spears definitely interesting. He's talented, but he's not really a winning player. Monsanto had some interesting off the court stuff this year. It wasn't really healthy, but I'm not sure exactly what was going on there. But there's
Yeah, this,
definitely some talent. I think Klunch did a really good job in the portal, all things considered, to get Spears. Tayrion Joseph averaged 20 points at Southern, missed some of the season, but yeah, someone who can really score the ball for sure. Showed that at Southern and at junior college level. Um, Jaquan Scott, another guy that really flourished in JUCO at Salt Lake Community College. Not do so much at Mississippi State, but definitely someone who I see making a solid impact here. Joe Smith from Buffalo, pretty solid big man. Raekwon Horton played a pretty solid role in a good James Madison team. Paul Lewis, high major guy. Smurf Melender coming over from South Alabama, averaged almost 10 points as a freshman point guard. Sky Wicks, I think, was Incarnate Word's leading scorer. Mo Engie, big man depth. And so, yeah, like, it's a really good portal class.
yeah, there's definitely a lot of names, and then able to bring in what four high major guys um, that have all played solid minutes. I guess Scott not so much, but was, as you mentioned, really good at the JUCO level before reaching Mississippi State. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it all fits. I mean, we kind of talked about it, or you kind of talked about it already, like Spears, Monsanto. What do they bring winning wise, team wise. The individual talent is probably there in the American, but does it all fit together? And then you also add in a guy right in between them who scored 21 a game last year. So just how does it all fit really?
Yeah, definitely going to be interesting, but the talent to an extent is there more than it has been in years past. So yeah, going with him at 10th. Next up, going to shift to Rice. First year of the Rob Lanier era, I have them in 12th out of 13 teams.
I've got them 13. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's
just
not
kind
a
of what he was left with. I feel like Lanier. I don't know. The portal classes when you compare it to UTSA is definitely a step or two or three below, but
yeah, I don't think it's a bad portal class, but at the same time, yeah, it's there's definitely some swings that like could pay off. Um, like maybe if like Trey Patterson ever becomes good, but he always gets hurt from Villanova. Denver Anglin, I think, is probably a guy to monitor. Didn't play last year, but he was a pretty guy like coming out of high school when he committed to Georgetown.
yeah,
Yeah,
Caden Powell, solid big man. Trey Broadnax, that'll be interesting to me to see how he makes the jump in competition from the Big South.
yeah,
Probably their starting point guard, I would imagine.
yeah. Got some shooting on the wing with Lem Husenovich, withdrew from the portal, and Jalen Smith coming over from SMU following Lanier there. Also got Emery Lanier, his son, to follow him. Not too much surprise there. Jimmy Oladipo from San Diego, freshman big man. Jacob Dar coming over from D2 level as well. Pretty good athletic wing there. It's Kellen Amos from Central Connecticut. It's all right. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, we'll see what Lanier does in year one, and then I can judge him from there. Like I thought he did a solid job at SMU, but this is definitely going to be a tougher spot to work from with Rice in the American.
Yes. Next up though is going to be Temple. Also finished 5-13 as those other teams did, but they did make a run to the conference championship game of the American. Won 4 games in conference tournament, 2 of them being against SMU and Florida Atlantic, but did not end up making a tournament. They also were like point shaving during the season. I don't know. I think Hyzier Miller
Yeah,
is cooked.
Heisey Miller. It sounds like he's probably done playing basketball, at least in the United States of America. And yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what direction they go this year. But I think you have Lynn Greer, 11,
Yeah.
5, and 4, and from
Who
St.
will be
Joe's.
suspended for a little
Yeah,
bit.
nine
Um,
nine games. I looked it up
yes,
beforehand.
gambling unrelated, just kind of wrong place, wrong time. I
Yeah, he
believe.
only he only got caught because they were looking into the program, and then
Yeah.
he had just came in. So yeah, unrelated to the whole temple point shaving thing, but just kind of got caught in the mix. Probably wouldn't have been suspended for 9 games if he transferred anywhere else in the country, which is kind of a weird thing
Yes.
to think about. But yeah, Greer, and then you've got Mashburn next to him. Mashburn, I don't know your thoughts on him. He kind of like he's just always been a slightly inefficient pure scorer, but I don't know
Yeah.
the talent's still there. He's a fun player when he's on.
Yeah, not someone I really loved at New Mexico, but at the same time, like he can really get hot. He can really score from the mid range. A guy you can go to if you need a bucket. Again, as you mentioned, definitely had his inefficiencies. Definitely not great defensively. He had his downsides, but when he's on, he's on. I think he's going to be a pretty solid player in the conference. I think his like He's still going to be who he is, but he should be one of the leading scorers in the conference for sure.
Yeah, I had him second team all conference, and then, I mean, we mentioned the first few games without Greer, he's probably gonna put up 20. He's probably gonna average 20 plus over those 9 games, I would have to think.
Yes. Also good to feel their transfers in. Elijah Gray from Fordham should be the starting big man, although not a team with too much big men. Mohammed Cated, other big man transfer, but he barely played at Tulsa. I guess we'll see if he can get many minutes. Jameel Brown also coming in from Penn State. Definitely someone with a little bit of potential moving down a level. Matteo Pizzarelli returns, guy who can really shoot the ball, doesn't give you much else, but he'll be shooting it at the guard position. Steve Settle the third, another guy coming back, really skinny, but good defender and should be another solid returner.
Yeah, I think Pizzarelli and um Pizzoni are gonna be two important players, both returning, and they're gonna be the ones that have to provide the shooting. Talked about Mashburn kind of struggling from outside the arc. Lynn Greer is not the most efficient 3-point shooter either. 30% from Greer, 32 from Mashburn. So I think those guys are going to be have to be guys that hit their shots if this Temple team wants to finish the way I think they can. I don't know if I gave my prediction. I guess I have
Yes.
Temple sixth.
Yes, I have him eighth. I think Zion Stanford is another name to keep an eye on. A guy that had a really good start to the season, kind of faded off, but definitely showed some real flashes. So maybe he starts over Pizzarelli this year. We'll see though. Um, Somewhat intriguing in year two at Adam Fisher era. But moving on to another team that was 5-13 last year in Wichita State. I have the Shockers sitting at seventh this year, right ahead of Temple.
I'm actually shocked that Wichita State went 5-13. I guess I didn't really clock that. I had Wichita State finishing fifth this year.
Yes. Not a great year. I will say they were probably better than 5-13, but that is what they ended up at year one in the Paul Mills era. But yeah, I think I do like their transfer class.
Yeah, I mean I talked about Justin Hill, experienced point guard coming in from Georgia. I think he could have a big year, and then Corey Washington, he was part of your third team, I believe.
Yes.
Um, Another guy who's gonna have a big impact. Scoring 16 a game at St. Peter's is kind of
Yes.
impressive in
He
my
was
eyes.
like their only source of offense. But so someone
Yeah,
that should definitely translate. Obviously brings his defense, brings his athleticism from his St. Peter's program built on that. AJ McGinnis coming in from Lipscomb, good shooter. Zane Meeks coming in from Arizona State. I believe he was hurt like pretty much all of last year, but when he's been healthy, he's a solid stretch big. Yeah, solid all around for they also got international recruit in Matej Bajnak, I believe, who is being treated as a transfer. He's a little bit older than the typical freshman. So not given his full eligibility, but was a pretty solid Croatian pro. So I definitely think he is a guy who can make an impact immediately. And they have some solid returners too. Um,
yeah, you've got the five newcomers we mentioned, and then I think it's a solid 10 deep with the five guys they bring back. Xavier Bell, Harlan Beverly, not the greatest shooters, but still two good scorers from the
yeah,
guard position.
two guys who
Both average
can
11
distribute
a
as
game.
well, can handle the
Yeah,
ball
and then
there.
Ronnie DeGray um, averaged 21 minutes a game last year, and then Quincy Ballard, starting five man, I think should have a big step up with Poto gone, and then Bijan Cortez transferred in from Oklahoma last season, I believe.
Yes.
Just a solid backup point guard. Keeps the depth good in the backcourt.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it'll be a little bit better this year in year two of the Paul Mills era. I guess we'll see. This will be somewhat of a big year for him, even though he's not in the hot seat yet. I
Yeah,
mean,
as
definitely,
long as he
definitely got to
show
get
like
better.
solid improvement.
Yes. But yeah, the other team finishing 5-13 in conference play last year was Tulane, and I have them 13th in the conference. I have them last.
Yeah, I've got Tulane 12th. I really just feel bad for Ron Hunter this year. He loses. His top six scores all above 8.5 a game last year. Just total rebuilding year. Even in the age of the portal, I don't think he really hit on many of these transfers. Ringgold and Jordan, the redshirt guys, maybe the best bets, just because we haven't seen anything bad from them yet.
Yes. I do like Rowan Brumbaugh. He's not that bad.
I mean, he just yeah, couldn't defend at all at a Big East level. Like the offensive upside is there, I guess, but I don't know.
Well,
Played for a very bad team.
Tulane
I'm
doesn't
not.
play defense, so he fits right in then.
Yeah, I mean it's probably why he was probably Hunter's top guy in the portal. So
I do like him though. I don't know about Michael Eulate. Sienna was Caleb Banks though was intriguing at least. Um yeah, there's not a lot here. Greg Glenn and Percy Daniels return to front court, but I haven't really seen anything from them that would indicate they're starters, starter level players. Yeah, even though I do think Glenn will get better, but yeah,
yeah, I
they
mean
lost a ton.
limited minutes last year. They're gonna have to take a big step up.
Yeah, I mean losing five double-digit scores plus Trey Williams, who averaged almost 9 points a game. It's going to be tough this year. But Ron Hunter's a good coach. They might be a little bit better than we expect, but I don't know.
Yeah, that like I gave Hunter the benefit of the doubt to not finish last, but it's definitely a stretch to see them higher than 11th or 12th. I feel like just
Yeah.
with what they have.
Next up, though, East Carolina. I have the Pirates finishing in sixth this year.
I've got East Carolina finishing 8th.
Okay. I always like East Carolina more than I should every year.
Yeah, I feel like they're always, I don't know, just like in they've got intriguing pieces. I mean, this year RJ Felton back should
Yeah,
be.
which is huge. I'm surprised he's back, honestly, but a huge guy to have back at this level for sure. Um, got some pretty good transfers. Jordan Riley, in conference guy from Temple, pretty athletic wing. CJ Walker, another good athlete coming from UCF, former five-star back in the day. Jan Farrell, coming from St. Bonaventure, good shooting, 3-4. Julian Samarero, probably more of a bench piece, but 13 point per game guy at Gardner Webb. So, and then they have some really good JUCO guys too. Jay Shane Woodard and Trevion LeBeau, I believe both top 15 junior college prospects. So there's too much to like, and I always get like hooked into them.
Yeah, I don't know, just a bit lower, I guess, and that's kind of just lowering my expectations after the past few years haven't quite been what I would have hoped. But I do like Woodard coming in from the JUCO level. You combine him with RJ Felton. I don't know. We'll see. Cam Hayes is gonna have to be, I don't
Yeah,
know, a step up. You lose Bobby Pettiford, but and then obviously in the front court, Brandon Johnson, Ezra Osar
yes,
transferring out.
pretty big losses there. Also some pretty solid freshmen. Obviously, you mentioned Boogie Felton. Believe Tybo Bailey is another pretty decently ranked guy as well. So there's definitely some talent here. I believe is this year two or three for Michael Schwartz.
Give me 3 seconds. I'll get that. This will be year three. 180 and 189 in Ken Palm first 2 years.
We'll see if he can kind of get things on the right path this year. Because yeah, I feel like he definitely underperformed last year. They're probably gonna underperform again, but I'm buying them like I always do. It's too intriguing. They have too much intrigue to be bad again, right?
I mean, we'll have to wait and see, but I'm skeptical this time around. I'm actually surprised just looking at Ken Palm's rankings. They're 124 preseason, which 60 spots better than they finished last year with a team that lost a handful of guys. So
Yeah. We will see. Next team up is Tulsa though. Finished 7-11 in conference play last year, as is East Carolina. I have Tulsa at 11th this year.
I've got Salsa to finish ninth.
Okay.
So
Again, still a bottom half of the conference team, but
yeah, I don't really think there's too much separating really the entirety of the bottom five. I think it splits pretty hard between the top eight and the bottom five in my eyes, I guess.
yes. The backcourt should be pretty decent though with Dwan Odom, solid point guard. Guy that can get to the rim coming in from Georgia State. It was pretty solid at Xavier before, and then a healthy Houston Willis should be pretty significant. Um,
Yeah, Wilson only 2 games last year, but looked good in those 2 games, I guess. And then I like the front court bringing back Isaiah Barnes and Jared Garcia, 2 solid guys for them last year. So keep some consistency there. Um, High major transfer, Braden Carrington, um, just good athlete, solid all around player. I don't, we'll see what his scoring looks like going down a level, but just I don't know, wasn't efficient enough to really carve out a role at Minnesota last year. Carve out an offensive role, I should say, but definitely was.
yes, they also got a guy from the military, and Tyler Barron. At least its story is particularly interesting. So yeah, spent past 5 seasons in the Navy, and played at JUCO last year. He played at junior college at Olympic Community College while his ship was docked while undergoing retrofitting in Bremerton, Washington. That's that's interesting, but yeah, should be maybe some solid big man depth. Um, pretty solid high school player there. We'll see if he can play it all, but definitely got some intrigue there. Justin Amati, another guy who did not play last year, was hurt at James Madison, but was a solid player the years before. Matt Reed, Tyshawn Archie. Obviously, I mentioned that I think Archie could probably be the team's leading scorer. Two rising sophomores. Um, just had some technical difficulties there, but we are back. Yeah,
That's what
Tulsa.
you get for trying to record in the dorm, though, I guess. So.
Yes. That'll happen. But yeah, Tulsa, definitely some intriguing pieces, but I had them at 11 in conference. Next up is going to be North Texas, finishing 10-8 in conference play last year, 3 games ahead of Tulsa. So clear separation between the top and the bottom there in the conference. And I have North Texas at fifth this year.
I've got North Texas finishing fourth.
All right. Yeah, so year two for Ross Hodge at the helm of the Mean Green. But yeah, they did lose a lot, but I also really like their transfer class.
Yeah, I think he's kept the defensive identity after McCassin left, and I think a lot of these guys continue that. Jasper Floyd in from Fairfield, Atten Wright, solid defender in from Drake. Talked about him. I really like his offensive potential. Is possibly a number one guy for them. Yeah,
Yes.
you get Rondell Walker back as well.
Yeah, Jonathan Massey, another guy in the wing that should provide some solid length. Latrell Giselle, coming from Stephen F. Austin, was a 13-point per game scorer and a pretty decent team there. Some forwards coming off the bench, Grant Newell from Cal, Brendan Laurent from FAU, and then Brock Weiss from Creighton, who redshirted this past season. So, and then got Mulai Sissoko back, who played 16 minutes a game last year for the Mean Green. So some solid returners and solid transfers. Less so solid returners, but got a few guys, those two that can Walker and Sissoko that will definitely see minutes yet again. Yeah, pretty solid. Yeah, I really like the transfer class considering the circumstance. Considering they lost C.J. Nolan, John Buggs, Aaron Scott, Reuben Jones, Jason Edwards, all of the portal. Considering that, I think they did pretty good.
Yeah, basically a full reload, keeping Walker and Sissoko. But other than that, probably the entire rotation is going to be newcomers. Matthew Stone, maybe a little bit of minutes off the bench. But yeah, I think North Texas has kind of solidified themselves as one of the solid mid majors in the world. Always a very good defensive team, and I think there's no reason for that not to continue this year with the guys they've brought in. Atten Wright knows how to win at Drake, so I'm all in on what he can be.
Yes, I definitely think Wright will be the go-to guy as well this year. So yeah, definitely name to monitor. Um, Moving on to next team, Memphis, finishing 11-7 in conference play. They kind of melted down the end of the season after being pretty good for the first half. But Memphis, that's just a Memphis thing to do. I have it first this year as of now.
I've got Memphis finishing first as well. I just kind of put now or never for Penny.
But yeah, Memphis definitely. Yeah, I think this will be the year for Penny too. If like it doesn't work out, I think they will move on if he fails again.
Yeah, I think that's how you have to put it. And I think I don't know, last year it just totally everything went sour. I don't see that happening again this year. Um, I don't know, unless things like this Tyreek Smith thing is going to happen throughout the course of the year. But I think it's there's experienced guys. I think they'll be locked in defensively. I think that was a big problem last year, just kind of not being locked in on that side of the ball. But I like Hunter and Okoji to kind of set the tempo there.
Yes, very talented roster still. Definitely the best roster in the conference from a talent perspective. Hunter's played multiple seasons of high major basketball. Haggerty, former high major recruit, averaged over 21 points per game this year. Um, Nicholas Jourdain, someone who was actually really good last year. He was kind of surprise player last year. He's just kind of a winning glue guy, which was
Yeah, just all around solid forward for them.
nice
Should
to
play
have.
close to every minute at the four, depending on Tyreek Smith's availability.
Yes, we'll see there. But yeah, um, as you mentioned, Tyreek Smith, Dane Dinge, and Musa Cisse, the other forwards on the team. PJ Carter, transfer from UTSA in conference, should bring some shooting off the bench. Um, it's a good roster. Jared Harris should see some minutes too as a top 100 recruit. But is Memphis gonna do it this year? I don't know.
Yeah, like I mean, I see this team getting into the tournament, but I still don't know from there if it's really like a team with Penny at the helm that I would trust to to make any damage from there. Kobe Rogers, not sure if we mentioned him yet in this team section, but solid 3 level scorer at Wichita State last year. Should be another
Hmm.
probably number 2 option behind Haggerty offensively.
Yeah, I mean this team should theoretically be really good. They're pretty well rounded. Should be good on both ends of the floor. Got some shooters. But they're probably gonna find a way to mess things up.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I don't know. I have them first and like by a pretty good margin comparatively looking at my top 100, but I don't know. There's always a chance it goes wrong under Penny as it's kind of showed, especially last season. So,
Next up is UAB. Finished 12-6 in conference play last year. Somewhat underwhelming regular season, but then kind of made up for it, making the tournament. I have the Blazers at 2 this year, right behind Memphis.
Yeah, I've got the Blazers to finish second as well. Um, bring back a lot of talent. Um, five of their top eight guys, and then headlined by my player of the year with Yaxel Lendeborg. Um, 14 and 11, two assists, two blocks. Just I don't know, all around solid big guy. One of the best bigs you'll see outside the power conferences this year.
Yes. Huge keeping him back at UAB. Definitely someone who could have gone about anywhere in the country had he opted to enter the transfer portal. They also got yeah, a few second year JUCO guys with Alejandro Vasquez and Christian Coleman, to second year transfer breakouts that definitely seem potential to happen. Bud Johnson really had a breakout sophomore year. We'll see if he can improve on that even. I really liked your transfer class as well. Tyron Moore, super efficient scorer coming in from Georgia Southern. Greg Gordon, coming from Iona, guy can really get to the rim, get in transition, and then Bradley Azawiro, um, solid big man coming in from St. Louis. Also got Jabori McGee, one of the better junior college prospects in the country, coming over from South Plains. We average about 17 points a game. They're really good junior college. So this team has a lot of talent, and I'm I don't really like how they were last year, but I still really buy this roster.
Yeah, and like you mentioned a little about the defensive struggles they had at points last year, and then you replace your top perimeter defender Eric Gaines with Tyron Moore. So I don't the defense will probably be a step back, but I still just I think this the offensive
But yeah,
side of things will be better. So I don't know.
but
There's
like their
there's
defense
there's give
was
and take.
bad last year. I just maybe think they like have some like still get a little bit better just because of like how like bad they were compared to what they had on the roster last year. Maybe because they were like 200th in defense last year, and they were definitely had so much more defensive talent in that. So I don't really think they're gonna get worse, but
Yeah, and I don't know. We'll see what happens, but I still think yeah, I do like Tyron Moore coming in and giving the
mhm,
offense another
yeah,
element.
for sure. Also got Tony off the bench, pretty good name and really good athlete. So this team should be good, but again, like I'm still a little concerned about what happened last year, but we'll see how it all works out. Moving on next to Charlotte, finishing 13-5. Year one of the Aaron Fern era is now the official full-time head coach of Charlotte. But yeah, I have them sitting at ninth this year.
I've got Charlotte finishing 10th. I think they're bound to take a big step back. Lucia Patterson, Igor Milicic, Sean Jackson, all going to Power Fives. So just a rebuild year for them, I think, even in the age of the portal.
Yes, definitely got some solid transfers in. Kylan Blackman in from Coastal Carolina. Jeremiah Odin from DePaul had his moments at Wyoming for sure. Giancarlo Rosado, solid in conference transfer from Florida Atlantic. Um, Nika Michkvarishvili, good player from Louisiana Monroe, solid big scorer. And Alexander Shizmashik, Florida transfer, was hurt last year. So definitely good transfer class, but yeah. At the same time, they're probably not getting in what they lost. Yeah, I think they're bound for a step back.
Yeah, I will say, I mean, all these guys coming into the front court should be solid, but then yeah, you take a step back, you look, and Milicic and Jackson are now at Tennessee and Iowa State, so it's still going to be a step back there. Yeah, interested to see what Kylan Blackman can do coming over from Coastal Carolina. See what type of backcourt him and Nick Graves become. Um, Patterson was definitely able to help take the pressure off Graves as a secondary ball handler. So I'm not too familiar with Blackman, but if he's able to do that as well, maybe there's some upside in the backcourt. But
Yes, yeah, Folk's another guy that can handle the ball. Robert Braswell is in like his seventh year.
Yeah, I don't know how that stuff works anymore, but yeah.
He's still back at Charlotte somehow, I guess. But yeah, this isn't a terrible team, but what they lost is just not really what they got, and even though they did get in some good pieces, so we'll see if they can be another surprising team or they regress to more of their talent level this year. So yeah, with them ninth. Next up is going to be Florida Atlantic, 14-4 in conference play. I have the Owls third this year in year one of the John Jacobs era.
Yeah, I've got FAU finishing third as well.
Yeah, should still be a pretty solid team despite the whole new roster, new coach, all that stuff. But they really have a solid squad now, even though it's completely different from last year.
Yeah, you've got kind of a mid-major all-star backcourt with Leland Walker, Kiki Tandy, Ken Evans, um, all really good scorers, all handle the ball pretty well. And yeah, I think I'm interested to see if two or three of them start, but I think they can all be solid players in the American.
Yes. Yeah, I think they will all start. Walker's going to be more to point guard, pretty good athlete as well. Tandy can really score the ball, can shoot. Former high major experience. Ken Evans was player of the year in the SWAC, put up some solid numbers at Jackson State. And then just continuing with the backcourt, they also got Nicola Moretti. Illinois transfer did not play very much there, but someone to at least keep an eye on. Um, and then yeah, they also got some solid transfers in the front court. Mentioned Baba Miller a little bit earlier. I really think he's going to be good here.
Yeah, I can see the hype and like he's a fun player to where it's like if he turns out good, it'll be really fun to watch. But I don't know. I guess I'm just more kind of unsure on him coming from Florida State, um, a team that didn't really win last year.
Yeah. Speaking about teams that didn't win, they also got Caleb Glenn from Louisville, who I also think is like going to be pretty solid as well. He was like a top 100 guy last year, and he wasn't terrible in the minutes he played, so buying him a little bit. Trey Carroll is the only returner who actually played last year. I think he's a guy that could also be in for a huge breakout depending on how the roster goes. Definitely showed some flashes last year and will be a name to monitor. Uh, got some other intriguing freshmen. Amar Amku could be a guy that gets in the rotation. Devin Vanderpool, Jaquel Powell, both redshirted last year. Montes Kokanis, Lithuanian freshman. So a very talented team. Obviously, very different from last year, but with the Baylor assistant, Baylor coaching tree, Jacobs, the next one up, all the international talent transfers. I think this team is still gonna be pretty good. Dusty May definitely left the program in a better spot than he came in, and obviously, but
Yeah, I think it'll end up being Walker, Evans, Langenfeld, the 1, 2, 3, and then you have Tandy and Moretti off
Tandy's
the
got to
bench.
start.
I
He's
I don't
probably
know.
I think he's gonna be your leading scorer.
I mean I'm bigger on Langenfeld, and I think you I would rather have Evans and Langenfeld than um play both Walker and
I'm gonna
Tandy at
look
the
up
same
what they
time. But
started in their exhibition.
yeah, I guess I don't when I went in depth on FAU it was earlier in the off season when things were less finalized. But yeah, I don't know. I'm big on Langenfeld, and then we talked about Vokatitis already. I think probably will end up being the starting five.
Yeah.
Baba at the four.
So against in their exhibition game they started Walker, Tandy, Evans,
Okay.
Miller, and Bogatitis. But I don't think Langenfeld played, so maybe still waiting on some clearance there internationally. So
Yeah, I guess I
um
should do my research there first. But
yes, but Caleb Glenn also played 19 minutes. Trey Carroll played 21. Nicola Moretti actually led the team in minutes with 26. So yeah. I didn't really I didn't really tell us a whole lot, but I mean, I guess with Langfield not playing, I guess I'm not exactly sure what the case there is, but still very, very deep team at least at the moment. Um, some really solid bench players there. So I guess we'll see how it all turns out. But moving to the last team, South Florida, obviously it's going to be a tough season for them after in terms of just after losing their coach, which especially as close to season as it is, not like there would be a good time, but
Yeah,
having that happen like 10 days before the season is definitely a huge blow for the program. But obviously, just because like the timing of it, like it's just I don't know how they're gonna look at the beginning of the season.
yeah, that like yeah, I don't know. It's a situation that I haven't seen ever in my time kind of closely covering the sport. So I don't know. Hopefully they can use it to fuel themselves and play in honor of Coach Abdur Rahim, but still just yeah, you lose your head coach 2 weeks before the year. It will likely be a struggle to start off. Just I don't know, mentally, physically, everything combining together, but still overall a talented squad, one that I have seventh in the conference.
Yes, I have them. I have them fourth. I definitely still like the team. I guess I don't know how they're gonna how like motivated they're gonna be, but I still think that this team can probably be a top half of the conference team. Jaden Reed, as I mentioned, I think he's gonna be like a stud this year. He was a really good recruit pickup, and I think he's gonna be like really, really good. Kobe Knox, second year transfer, should also be a big impact in our front court. Stroud, also second year guy, so a lot to like there. Got some intrigue with the portal. Deontay Green, pretty highly regarded recruit at Florida State. Jameel Reynolds, huge big man from Cincinnati, and Quincy Adam McCoy averaged double figures at Kennesaw State. Jimmy Williams really put up some big stats at the junior college level, so that's someone to monitor as well. This roster is pretty solid, I think.
Yeah, yeah, and then CJ Brown, a freshman, another guy
Yes.
involved in the backcourt. There's definitely upside to it. I'll say I had them seventh before the Abdur Rahim news. I don't know, just kind of generally lower on the roster. I still think I I can see fourth, but I don't know. North Texas, Wichita State, I like a little bit more. I'm blanking on who I had sixth as well, but oh, Temple. Yeah, I guess I don't know. USF Temple pretty close there, but Reed Knox. We'll see what the breakout years bring.
Yep. Cation Jennings back from injury as well. We'll see, but Reed is going to be really good. I am buying as much Jaden Reed stock as you can.
I
Just
respect
yeah,
it. I respect it.
we'll see. Yeah, he could definitely get a bag somewhere next offseason, depending on what happens and with the coaching, with the new coach and uncertainty, depending on whether they go with the interim going forward. Definitely someone who could be exploring his options in the portal. So, yes, Jaden Reed, I'm buying as much stock as you can in him. But yeah, and any other notes in the conference?
Um, uh,
Again,
yeah, I think overall a fun league. I would be stunned if it got more than two teams. I feel like it'll probably only get
yeah,
one, but again, depends on the conference tournament we saw last year. UAB come out of nowhere, so I guess not out of nowhere, but they kind of
they started
I don't
playing
know.
like they were
They
supposed to all season.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
But yeah, definitely. I mean, as we all mentioned, so much talent lost. So really could be a little bit wide open. Just so many different factors at play, but it'll be a solid conference. Again, I'm kind of with you. don't really think they'll get two, but it probably will end up getting two somehow. I don't know.
Yeah. I could just see Memphis actually sticking for a full regular season and then crashing and burning in the American tourney and we get two, but we'll see.
Yeah, they have to be good to regular season for that to happen now. Last year
Yeah,
they crashed and
30,
burned so
31
quick.
straight games for Penny's team to be consistent. Probably
We'll
too much
see.
to ask,
The
but
everything's on paper is there though. But yeah, make sure to appreciate everyone for watching. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube. Make sure to turn on post notifications for all videos and conference previews. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at Hoopscoop Media and on Twitter/X, same at. Make sure to follow Luke at College Hoops Outlet on Instagram at CHO Talk Sports on Twitter. And we will see you for the next conference preview.